It's 4:05. We're gonna go ahead and start right now. Thank you again to all that have attended. My name is Jude. I'm one of the programs associate at the Arts Council for Long Beach. I'm joined by Lisa, Director of Programs, and Sergio, another programs associate. And we will be going over our annual grants, specifically the Professional Artist Fellowship for fiscal year 2026. We'll first start with the land acknowledgement. We recognize that we work on the unceded traditional and sacred lands of the Tongva, Quiche, Akshman, and Chumash, and the many other indigenous groups who call these grounds home. We honor and extend our gratitude to all of the original people still living in this region. So before we get started, we'd like to go over some housekeeping. So first, we'd like you to rename your video panel to reflect your first name and an organization if you're a part of one, or your social media handle. So in the bottom, in the three dots, you could click your name, select more, and rename yourself, just so that we know who you are. And we would also like you to turn your video on, as this helps create a good environment for small group discussions like these. And please place yourself on mute when you're not speaking, so that helps minimize background noise and distractions. And as always, you can use the chat to communicate with us if you need assistance with anything. And feel free to use the reaction buttons as well to communicate anything. And we also have captions available. So if you also click more at the bottom, you can select captions and show captions, and that will show up for you. So we will go over our mission. So the Arts Council for Long Beach cultivates the physical, social, and economic characteristics of Long Beach neighborhoods by nurturing and enlivening the arts. Our vision for the Arts Council for Long Beach envisions a thriving Long Beach that benefits from universal participation in the arts. And a quick overview of the Arts Council: we serve individuals, groups, and organizations through advocacy, arts education, public art, and grant making within the city of Long Beach. We practice profound inclusion as a collaborator and convener for the benefit of all communities. So today's agenda for the technical assistance workshop is just a quick overview of our annual grants programs, such as the Community Project Grant, the Operating 1 and 2 Grant, and the Professional Artist Fellowship, how exactly the funds are dispersed. And then we're going to dive into the fellowship with the eligibility, the evaluation criteria, application steps, and artistic documentation. And then we'll hand it over to everyone for a Q&A. So our grant programs at the Arts Council for Long Beach consists of the annual grants, which of course is the Professional Artist Fellowship, and then the Community Project Grant, which is for organizations and nonprofits in Long Beach, as well as the Operating Grant 1 and Operating Grant 2. And then you can find more information on our website. The link is also in the chat, but it's artslb.org/program/grants. And then we have our quarterly microgrants. So these project microgrants are for events that are free and open to the public. And we also have the professional development microgrants. And for more information, you can also visit our website, artslb.org/program/grant/microgrants. So the 2025-2026 Professional Artist Fellowship, this grant honors Long Beach's living artists with awards recognizing their most recent work. Eligible artists must be active Long Beach artists who live, work, or actively create in Long Beach and demonstrate an active exhibition and/or production record of at least 3 years with a profound impact to Long Beach communities. Awards are granted based on artistic merit and professional achievement. The grant award amount is dependent upon available funds and the number of qualified applicants. So I'll turn it over to Lisa to talk about the eligibility.
Thank you, Jude. Thanks everybody for joining us today. I'm going to talk a little bit about who is eligible and who's not eligible for the Professional Artist Fellowship. So we are honoring artists who are active in Long Beach, and we define that as who live, work, or actively create in Long Beach and must demonstrate an active exhibition and/or production record of at least 3 years. Awards are merit-based and they're based on professional achievement, and the grant award is dependent on available funds and number of qualified applicants. So eligible applicants are required to meet the following requirements. They must show documentation of physical presence in Long Beach. So either a business license, home or studio, or proof of residence, or consistent pay stubs. And then artists must receive payment and or serious critical recognition for some or all of their artistic services or production. So how do we determine funds? Who gets the fellowship and what's that process look like? So applications will be submitted. The Arts Council staff will review all of the applications and check eligibility, completeness, make sure each application has all of the necessary components to it. And then we will form review panels. Those happen in the summertime. And the panels will convene and review all the applications. Panelists will score based on merit. Award levels are determined by scores. And so those panelists, just so that everybody knows, are independent from the Arts Council. It's usually 5 panelists, 1 board member, and 4 community members. We do have a call for panelists right now, and so we'll be reviewing those applicants and be comprising the panel. It changes every year. We have different panels every year, but they're going to be the ones that are scoring the applications based on the scoring rubric that we'll go through later. And the highest scores will be awarded based on available funding. And so that's how we'll determine the amount of funds and how much each of the qualified applicants get. So those recommendations from the panel are reviewed by the allocations committee and the board of directors. The allocations committee will review the panel scores and rankings and bring those recommendations to the board of directors, who will ratify the funding levels. And then all grants must be finally approved by the board of directors. Applicants will be notified and receive a contract. They'll be notified after the Arts Council receives our contract from the City of Long Beach. Generally, this is around November or February. The reason for this long delay is that our funding comes from the City of Long Beach. The city passes its budget in September. So although we do conduct panels in August, we're still waiting for our city contract. So we have to wait until we receive that, make sure that we're still getting the funds for the year. And then once we receive our contract, then we can go ahead and send out notifications. So I know it does seem like a long waiting process where you've submitted your application in June, but you're not hearing until end of the year or early 2026. So just so everybody knows that timeline. So who's not eligible to apply? If you're a full-time student, we do make exceptions for post-grad students with extensive professional experience or serious critical recognition. And if you're a recipient of a fellowship within the last 3 grant cycles, you're not eligible. Employees, board members, or contract employees of the Arts Council are not eligible. And applicants may only apply for 1 Arts Council annual grant. So if you're applying for an operating grant, you're not eligible. Community project grant, you're not eligible. Or if you're applying for a fellowship, you're not eligible to apply to any of the other categories. And so the reason for this, sometimes it can be a little bit confusing. For example, if somebody is part of an organization and they're applying, but then they also want to apply as a fellow, we would not be able to do that. So you have to not be applying for any of the other categories. So what disciplines are eligible? We really want to be as inclusive as possible about artistic disciplines. We have added a few categories this year, but in general, visual arts, performing arts, costume design is a new one that's been added, audio arts, literary arts, media arts. We've also recently added culinary arts as a category, multidisciplinary or interdisciplinary arts, or folk and traditional. And it's not limited to these disciplines. Obviously, there's subsets within all of these type of art. And if you have questions about what is eligible and what's not, please just reach out to us. So earlier, I talked about the review process and the scoring that panelists do. So I want to go over how your application is going to be evaluated. And this is really important to think about when you're filling out your application. You want to make sure that everything that you submit is going to inform the panelists how to score for these three different categories. There's a total of 100 points. This is a change from last year. We used to have it as 10 points with a total of 30. Now we've broken it down so that it's a total of 100 points. So the first category is artistic achievement. You can score up to 33 points for that. And so this is talking about the artist's work, that it reflects a high level of artistry or craftsmanship. Artist statement, resume, and artistic samples relate to one another, and the artist statement engages the reader. It explains the goals and motivations of the artist's work and is clear and well written. So obviously, this section is going to be highly scored based on the resume or CV, the artistic documentation, and then also the statement. So those will be really important for this section. The artist background. So does the artist have formal artistic training, apprenticeship, or practice in their discipline? Do they have several years of productivity and achievement in professional venues? And are they contributing to the local community? Are they doing workshops, exhibiting locally, etc.? So the resume or CV is going to be very key to this section of the application. And then we're looking at contribution to the Long Beach community. Because these funds are coming from the city of Long Beach, it's very important that the artists that are represented, these are the artists of the year, so to speak, for Long Beach. So we want to make sure that they're really Long Beach artists who are doing work in the community. And we do recognize that Long Beach doesn't always have venues for, say, exhibiting visual arts, performing arts. So it's not that you have to only exhibit or perform in Long Beach, but we want to make sure that you're giving back to the community and contributing to Long Beach. So that's very important as part of the grant. So important, in fact, that it's 34 points out of the scoring. So we want to make sure that the artist is either offering free or low-cost workshops that benefit the community. They've exhibited locally in Long Beach, and they have an active history of engagement with various arts, cultural, and history organizations, collectives, or producing or assisting on projects. So again, your CV and your artist statement are going to kind of inform the panel on those. So what do you need in order to submit an application? As you're preparing to submit, you're going to need proof of Long Beach residency or artistic presence in Long Beach. You're going to need your artist statement. You're going to need an arts equity and cultural inclusion statement, your CV or resume, your letters of recommendation. We do require 2 letters from professionals in your practice, and you're going to need your artistic documentation. So what is acceptable formats for proof of residency or presence in Long Beach? Obviously, if you have a valid driver's license or any kind of federal or state or local ID, a utility bill that's dated within the last 90 days of the application deadline, a business license, a rental agreement, pay stubs if you work in Long Beach, or some type of alternative proof of living, working, or actively creating in Long Beach. So for the artist statement, we do have some guidelines or helpful assistance on what we're looking for and what some best practices are for writing an artist statement. And why is it even important to have an artist statement? You know, a lot of artists are either visual or maybe writing isn't their skill set and wonder, why should I have to write an artist statement? So there's some logic to it. The artist statement is a very important tool, and it helps for artists to better understand how and why they do what they do. So it's an ever-changing document that is revisited, often after a new body of work or a project is completed. And it outlines your artistic practice, ideas, intent, materials, and method. And every institution, gallery, critic, curator, funding source, or collector will ask you for this. So they might require a statement at some point. So if you're going to be a professional artist, this is a very important part of your practice. And it's good to have an updated statement ready at all times. And keep in mind that while everyone can read your statement, a lot of people won't. They might just scan it, but you always want to consider your audience when you're writing the statement. So for this, obviously, the panelists will be reading the statement. And so you want to gear the statement towards the panel and what we've set forth in our scoring rubric and the questions that we've asked specifically in the artist statement section. So some thoughts on artist statement. You want to describe your artistic practice or philosophy and creative process and highlight any major lines of inquiry. What are your short-term and long-term goals and any proposed activities, performances, exhibitions, publications, and other community activities? How will you grow as an artist through the fellowship? And then optional for traditional and folk arts. You may add one page of narrative that specifically discusses your traditional practice and the creation of new work in that cultural context. For example, how does your project uphold or expand traditional ideas of how the art form should be done? Who is your target audience and community? How are you engaging with Long Beach residents? What are your envisioned impact on that targeted community or community in the near future? And do you have any new or existing relationships with this audience or community? And also describe how you plan to reach the suggested audience or community. So for your CV or resume, we want to see major works, exhibitions, projects, commissions, and collaborations with corresponding dates. We want to learn about your education, any degrees, apprenticeships, and self-taught history with the corresponding dates. Any employment related, and I want to clarify this. This isn't just any employment in general, only employment that's related to your artistic practice. So if you are employed, say, you know, as a visual artist with an organization, you would add that, but you wouldn't want to add any irrelevant employment history that has nothing to do with your artistic practice. And you also want to include any fellowships, prizes, grants, or honors, or residencies that with corresponding dates. We do have some resources. There's a great organization called GIST that has a lot of sample resumes and CVs and artist statements and a lot of great resources. So we can link to that as well. And then the letters of recommendation. So these need to be turned in with the application. You can't send them later, so it needs to be part of the application submitted by the due date. The writer should indicate why they support you as an artist. I know it says proposed project, but there isn't a project that we're asking for. Why they support you as an artist, how they've come to know your work, and or you as your profession or their affiliation with that. The letter should be addressed to members of the panel. Letters should be on professional letterhead, and letters must be included in the application. They can't be sent separately or mailed. It's important to think about who you're going to ask to submit letters of recommendation. I think it's the more professional the letter is, I think the more it resonates with the panel. If it's a friend writing a letter, it may not have as much weight as, say, a curator that's worked with you or something like that. So think very particularly about who you want to ask for letters of recommendation. Your artistic documentation. This is honestly perhaps the most important part of your application. So really think about spending a lot of time on your documentation and how you're going to submit it. Um, and I think Sergio is going to take over and talk about artistic documentation now.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Lisa. As Lisa mentioned, this is one of the biggest portions of your application. We want to make sure that you're including any high production, high quality images, links, videos, audio samples, any excerpts that you can link to. We want to make sure that you're demonstrating your skills in your art form, how you contributed to your community or communities that you've been a part of. And we want to just remind that these are 10 samples. We don't want to have any more, or I would say between 6 to 10 samples is a good range. We don't want to have any less or any more, just so that we can allow the panel a succinct vision of what you've done within the past 3 years. And so all of this information will be submitted as one whole PDF. After I go through a couple of slides, I'll show an example version that I've created in order to kind of mimic what is going to be submitted. But we want to make sure that work sample descriptions are also included with each sample. So if it's an image, say you're a photographer, you want to kind of describe your image. If you're a visual artist, if you painted a mural, made a mosaic, or any additional visual arts, you want to make sure that you describe it by including the title, the date, where it's at, if a venue's applicable, the length of work, dimensions, the media. If the work was a collaboration, please indicate your role and how you contributed to that art piece. And also just explain the sample's relevance to your practice and the community impact. And so a little bit on how to prepare the file technically. So we want to make sure that everybody uses the same file formatting, just so it's easier on our end when we share out documents and we sift through things. So I would say, please use your last name, your first name, or your artist names, underscore artistic documentation, underscore FY26, just so that we know that these documents are for this current year and we don't mix them up with any other documents. As I mentioned, all your artistic documentation will be submitted as one PDF in the application. Any links to videos and audio files will be embedded within that document. If you do require any assistance or would like any guidance on how to prepare this as well, you can contact us and we are more than welcome to walk you through it. Please don't send any originals of your work to us or just submit any original works. It's all going to be copies, all digital, nothing physical. It'll all just be included in that artistic documentation index. And please always make sure that you test your hyperlinks, that nothing is locked behind a password, or it will expire within a couple of days if you're sharing a link. We want to make sure that all of these links are present pretty much throughout the duration of the application process, as well as if you are accepted as a fellow with the program. So we want to make sure that those links are working for everything. For any videos, please link them into the artistic documentation. Please link videos that are up to 5 minutes, no longer than that. If you have any videos that are longer than that, please just go ahead and select a scene that you want the panel to actually see or spend the most time on, since we do get pretty much a good amount of applications every year. So we encourage this for any dance, multidisciplinary artists, media artists, theater, traditional and or folk artists. Same goes with audio. Please embed those links into the PDF and also for 5 minutes. This is strongly encouraged for any music or any read out literature or any poems or stuff like that if you're submitting examples like that. And we also encourage you to add any special playback instructions so that the panelists know when to start a video, when to end a video, if you want to focus on a specific portion. As I have an example here, you want the video to start at the 4-minute mark and you just want to play it out for 2 minutes. So if you want to be as specific as possible, that is always a great help for the panel to know what exactly you want scored. For any images, please go ahead and include them in your document as 72 dpi and make sure that these are smaller than 5 megabytes, just so that your PDF at the end of the day doesn't come out to be huge. We do not need any of the 300 dpi images or anything that's going to be, for print, since those are too big of a file and it'll make your PDF pretty big. For any publications, please go ahead and link those samples, but you could also go ahead and do any screenshots of a page. If you have any scans, you could include them in your artistic documentation. I'll go ahead and show that in a moment. But pretty much make sure that the files that you include are smaller files and just still visually visible to tell what's going on in the image. So I'll go back here and go ahead and stop share real quick so I could pull up that artistic documentation document example. Give me one sec. So here's an example of how to submit some artistic documentation. So as was mentioned earlier, please go ahead and use your first and last name or your artist name as the beginning of your file, artistic documentation, as well as the fiscal year and the grant, so the Professional Artist Fellowship. And I'm currently doing this within Google Docs, as this is pretty much accessible if you have a computer or a smartphone. You're able to access this if you have a Google account, and it could live in your drive just for future reference as well, just so you don't lose it within files on your computer or anywhere else. And it's just best practice to go ahead and keep those files for long-term use, especially within the application period. So you'll want to put your name at the top or artist name, put the same information, FY26 PAF Artistic Documentation Index, and you'll want to label your samples as sample 1, sample 2, sample 3, and so forth. So here I have a digital photograph that has been edited and included within the document. And so it is just basically a lower resolution image that still shows enough quality to tell what's going on, the name of the artist, the title, the year it was made, and just the medium, and just a small description. I just went ahead and just put a one-sentence description just as a quick overview, but we do encourage you to write a little bit more extensively when describing this information. Here is another image in terms of how to submit and format. And here is where we go down to the video, audio, and any written work links. So sample 3, we have an artist feature and we have a video link here denoting that it's a 5-minute video. We have a little bit more of a robust description as to what the video is. So this is what we encourage you to write in terms of length so that the panel can know what's going on in the video. Here we have an audio link of a podcast of a conversation between artist Cynthia Luhag and Greg Johnson, talking about public art in Long Beach and defacement. So since this was an episode of a podcast, we wanted to note where we want to start the video. So we denote start at minute 4:30 and play for 3 minutes just so that the panel can focus on that portion. And so for any written works, we have a past fellows work right here where we also link the written work. But if you would like to go ahead and just add an example of the work as a screenshot or an image, you're more than welcome to as well, as it makes it a little easier for the panel just to read your work as they won't have to go to an external link. But this is pretty much the basic format of how to do your artistic documentation. And once again, we suggest anywhere from 6 to 10 examples to make a strong application. Now I'll go back to the presentation. Okay. And as part of the application process, we do offer some professional development when it comes to any artist headshots as well as artistic statement writing. I will be helming the artist headshot sessions for the application process. And This is geared towards more so our artist registry page. So that if nobody here has heard of our artist registry, the Arts Council for Long Beach offers a registry where you could sign up for free, include any links to your website, social media handles. You're able to include your artistic documentation in a really cool manner. It's almost like a digital business card. And we share out a lot of our artistic opportunities here. So any murals, any collaborations that people are looking for, if there's nonprofits looking for any photographers, painters, any dancers, we go ahead and share out everybody from that registry. And we've gotten lots and lots of feedback saying that they've gotten lots of work from those registries. So we do encourage you to sign up. But if you do get accepted as a fellow, it is a requirement to sign up for the registry. So these photos can be used for that, so that you could have it as your main image, and just so you can have it for future reference in different application opportunities or anything that requires a professional headshot. So starting next week on Wednesday, May 21st through June 12th, every Wednesday and Thursday, I will be available between 9 a.m. and 12:15 for 15-minute headshot slots. You'll be getting 2 pictures at the end, and this will be done in Studio 111 in downtown Long Beach. The link at the bottom is how you can book a meeting with me. We will be sharing this information out, but I do encourage you to write the link down or take a picture. We'll also be sharing it in the chat, but just so you could have it for reference. So that'll be starting next week on Wednesday. And then I'll pass it over to Jude to talk about the artistic statement.
Thank you, Sergio. So as well as the headshots, we will also be offering assistance with the artist statement. So I will be holding Zoom meetings starting tomorrow through June 6th. And my schedule is as follows: Monday, 1:30 to 4:15, Tuesday, 10 a.m. to 11:45, Wednesday, 10 a.m. to 11:45, 2:30 p.m. to 4:15, and also Thursdays, 10 a.m. to 11:45. And I have 15, 30-minute, and 1 hour slots available to review your artistic statement for the application, as well as, fine-tuning any of those details. And that is the link to my meeting for creating a Zoom link, and I've also put it in the chat. So our grant timeline, our applications have actually opened on April 16th, and the grant cycle deadline for all of our annual grants is Friday, June 13th at 5 p.m. And we will not be accepting any applications past this time. So make sure to have everything in order much earlier. We very much encourage that. So if you go on our website, artslb.org/program/grants/professional artist fellowship, you can find the application there. And if you have any additional questions, you can email us at grants@artslb.org. And here's also all of our contact information if you'd like to contact us directly. If you have any questions, we will be available to help with any inquiries you may have. And thank you so much. We can open it up to our questions, to any questions that we can answer.
Hello. Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to go back to when I read something about 3 years, like you would need like a 3 years background of doing workshops with the community or something. I've worked in Long Beach as a tattoo artist. is that something that that counts? Because I'm not, I've done like paint and sip classes before, but not in Long Beach. That was when I lived in LA. So as far as like having 3 years of experience, you know, contributing to the community in the arts, I'm just a little bit kind of foggy on that one.
So I can clarify. So what we're looking is 3 years of work within your practice. So are you going to be applying as a tattoo artist for this fellowship? Is that the medium that you're going to be applying under?
No, I paint and I've worked with galleries in LA and I've been showing my work. I have my master's in fine art, but I also work as a tattoo artist. Um, or I have worked as a tattoo artist. I don't work at a shop currently anymore. I
So
just
the Oh, sorry.
sorry,
So
I just finished writing a children's book too that's been illustrated. And so I'm just wondering like what I say for, I mean, how do I do I even qualify? Because I don't know, like I've lived in Long Beach and as an artist, I've been doing nothing but painting in Long Beach. But as far as like having workshops that people have attended, like I haven't taught any workshops in Long Beach.
okay, so let me back up a little bit. So the 3 years of productivity is we would like 3 years. So the work that you're submitting needs to be from within the last 3 years. So current work, ideally. So you don't want to have work from like 1985 that you're putting in your application. So you want to see three years of productivity within the work that you're submitting into this professional artist fellowship. So we want to see that you've been productive in the last 3 years. So the 3 years refers to your work that you're submitting as an artist for the fellowship application. Um, the work that you've done in Long Beach, it doesn't need to be workshops. It's just showing that you are active in Long Beach, that you're contributing to Long Beach. Through your artistic practice. So however that is for you, we absolutely understand that, showing in galleries in LA makes sense for artists because that's oftentimes where you go where the money is, right? So obviously you might be showing in LA, but what are you doing here in Long Beach for the community and how are you going to demonstrate that in your application? So that's something for you to kind of contemplate with your work and how you've contributed to Long Beach as an artist.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I hope that's helpful. So Judy's going to take over with the Q&A and help us to moderate.
Yes, hello everyone. I see we have McCall Cadenas next. And then after that, we have Nick.
Oh, I think Nick rose his hand first. So I don't know if Nick, you want to go, but I can do it if you're not ready. All right.
Yes, I'm here. My most of my credits are as a musician, a composer, conductor, and preparing performance art. My concerns right now are finishing a very, very large 3 by 7 foot ceramic mural. So my credits on my CV don't relate necessarily to what I need assistance for. So maybe falls under the category of the technical assistance grant. That's one question. And then the second question is, are these materials that we've been looking at available on your website?
I'm not sure I understand your first question. So this is a fellowship grant that the application is specifically recognizing professional artists in Long Beach. So if that's something that you think you qualify for, then I would encourage you to apply. We have a separate grant that's for professional development. So if you wanted to take a class or workshop or something like that to advance yourself as an artist, we have quarterly
Mhm.
professional development workshop. So it's two separate grants. The professional development that Jude and Sergio were talking about, that's just application assistance. It has nothing to do with the application itself. It's just if you would like to get additional assistance in order to prepare for this application, we're offering that to everybody. So did that answer your first question?
Yeah, I could do that one-on-one maybe at a different time rather than tie up
Sure,
this.
yeah. Yeah, if you
thing.
feel
And
like
then
you're prepared and don't need that,
I'm a working artist. I've done things here at the Japanese Garden at Cal State Long Beach. I have a recent MFA 2015, and I'm working here in Long Beach. But anyway, I'll do that later, maybe on the side. And then these materials that Sergio went through and everything we've been saying, those are available on your website, correct? That was the second question.
our guidelines are available on our website. We will be putting this video recording up on our YouTube channel. So we will have that available. It just might not be right
Perfect.
away, but we will be adding it to the website.
If you could. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem.
Great. My question was about similar to the other person's about the continued work. So I've done a lot of work in Long Beach. I want two things. I was a Cali Corps recipient through you guys with the South Coast Chorale that is does that count? Because it's a full year program working with that. I know it has to be 3 years. I have the other documentation, or that's my second question, but does the Cali Corps count because I was partnered with a Long Beach South Coast Chorale to work in tandem with. But again, we had to show outside of Long Beach because we didn't have a venue large enough for that.
Yeah, I think that would qualify as work within the Long Beach community. And just to clarify the 3 years, the 3 years is that you have an active production of the last 3 years. It's not necessarily about your work in Long Beach. Obviously, the more time that you've spent in Long Beach, the higher probably you'll score, but it doesn't have to be 3 years of work in Long Beach. That's in regards to the work. As a professional artist, you need to be at least 3 years practicing.
Oh, okay. And then I guess with that being said, so it says that I need to submit for like pay stubs, but because I'm an artist, I don't get paid that way. I kind of just I get it at the end. So for example, I got contracted with Long Beach Opera in 22 to start working on Romance of the Rose, their world premiere of Romance of the Rose that premiered in February of 23, but I didn't get paid until after the show of February of 23. So if I were to like submit my taxes, it wouldn't, I would just have like 23 and 24 from, but is there a way that I could send you guys something from, because it takes longer than 2 months to plan. Like we plan the whole show beforehand and then rehearsals and then we go into and the production when it premieres. So it premiered in February, but all of the work was done in 22, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so we want to just make sure that artists either live, work, or actively create in Long Beach. So the pay stubs were just one example of how if you were working in Long Beach as your profession, that's
Yeah.
one way to demonstrate that. You could also demonstrate it from, like the program has your name on it. So that would demonstrate that you are part of a program in Long Beach. It doesn't have to be pay stubs. That's just one example of proof that you either live, work, or actively create in Long Beach.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah, I all of my professional work is through Long Beach nonprofits. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
I have a question.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So I'm applying in the genre of performing arts, and we have been doing chamber music concerts, free chamber music concerts in Long Beach. And my question is about the letters of recommendations. I was going to ask my coworker from Long Beach Symphony that I work with Long Beach Symphony to write a letter of recommendation. That will be my one choice. And the second choice, I was going to ask a librarian, because we were doing concerts for the library, it's not concerts, but presentations about chamber music to the for the library. They're also obviously free. And she was witnessing that. I don't know if she would be the right person to write a letter of recommendation. I just wanted to check with that.
Yeah, those both sound like good examples of professionals in the field that could write a recommendation.
Okay, so I mean, she's not working in my profession, but she was the observer of what I was doing.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. I see Christina, you have your hand up.
Yes, hi. I had a question about, I think it was a contribution to community, well, 10 pieces of evidence that we have to submit. Can I get clarification on that? And also, I guess the main question would be, would that have to be within 3 years too, for the other items that we need for artistic documentation?
So the 10 samples is just artistic documentation. We're not asking for evidence of 10 samples of working in Long Beach. That'll mostly be based on your resume and CV and your narrative within your grant application. That's how the panel will evaluate that. So the 10 samples, that's just your artistic documentation.
Okay, and so that doesn't necessarily have to be within the 3 years, or does it?
It's recommended that
Okay.
the work be as recent as possible. Also, you know, we do recognize we did have a pandemic, so there were obviously, you know, things that happened and production and things like that. So if it spans a little bit further back, I totally understand. But again, we just don't want work that's, you know, so far removed and irrelevant. We want to be able to see that that the artist has been um working productively for the last 3 years within their field.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I see that there was a question about the amount of funding. And so although we don't have a minimum or maximum, the award amounts typically have been around the $4,000 to $5,000 range. It also depends on outside funding that we receive. So for example, we have the city funding that we get, but we also do try and seek additional funding outside of the city funding to supplement, to add on to the grants. So for example, Percent for Arts funding, in the past, we've also received funding from NEA. So we do try and add on to that funding if possible. It's not always possible. Every year is different, but typically that's been the range the last few years. We've also funded anywhere from just a few artists to up to 10. We've been trying to fund around 10 artists, but that has been contingent on outside funding. And again, we don't know if that's going to happen or not. So usually we do try and fund around 5 artists at the $4,000 level, with potential for additional artists or additional funding if that comes in. I hope that helps to clarify your question. And then I see Christina, you have a question? Or did you already ask that question? Sorry. Kai? You're muted.
Hi, I'm Kifong,
Okay.
and this is addressing the registry because I saw that it was a requirement. So I put in my registry in April, and I got an email back that said it was pending, but I haven't heard back since. Do you know what the turnaround time is, or who I could contact regarding like the approval?
Judy, are you able to answer that?
Yes, hello. Hi, I did receive it. It is published. They're typically published 7 to 10 business days. And unfortunately, we're not able to send a notification out at this moment.
Oh,
Yes, we just have such a small staff. So, but your profile is live on our site.
Oh, good.
And you
Thank
can
you.
email me if you would like to make any edits or if you need any assistance with that. I'll put my
Awesome.
email in the chat.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
And it's not a requirement to have your profile before you submit. It's a requirement though if you do receive the fellowship. So there's time. So I don't want anybody to feel stressed out if they haven't gotten it in by the deadline, where it's not a requirement at this time to have your profile in before you submit your application. And then I see there's a question, are we allowed to apply for the development microgrant as well? So just to clarify, our our grant cycle, our fiscal year is October 1st through September 30th. So this particular grant cycle that you're applying for is for the fiscal year 26. So the grant period is October 1st, 2025 through September 30th, 2026. So the answer to that is yes, you are allowed to apply for the professional development microgrant. However, we do prioritize grantees that aren't receiving any funding. So if it does turn out that you do receive the fellowship, depending on the amount of applications that we receive, if there's limited funding, we will prioritize people who aren't receiving any funding from the Arts Council currently, just to try and be fair and distribute the funds as evenly as possible. And then I see in terms of editing your artist registry, Judy did put her email in the chat. So if you want to reach out directly to Judy, and I believe there's some editing instructions on our website as well and a video, so you can check that out.
There's a question in the chat asking if we could briefly describe the microgrant.
Absolutely. So we have two types of microgrants. There is a project microgrant and a professional development microgrant. So the project microgrant is for individuals, organizations, groups that want to do an arts or cultural project within Long Beach. It needs to be free and open to the public, and it needs to benefit the city of Long Beach. And so that's up to $1,000 for any free program that's arts or cultural based and takes place in Long Beach. The professional development microgrant is for if artists who either live, work, or actively create in Long Beach or arts administrators would like to attend a conference or workshop, artist residency, anything that's going to help them further their career as an artist. We will fund up to 50% of the conference fee only. We do not fund travel or food or any of those expenses. It's strictly just up to 50% of the conference fee. And typically, we don't always fund the full 50%. It depends on the amount. Typically, it's around up to $250 for professional development microgrants. So that's just to help if there's any kind of workshop that you'd like to apply for. And anybody can apply for up to $1,000 per fiscal year for microgrants. Those are quarterly, so the deadline is actually the 15th for the next cycle.
I have a question about that. I have an idea for a community workshop that I want to do, but I don't have a track record of doing workshops. It would be my first one. Do I still have a chance if I apply?
I think so. I think what you might want to do, so we do ask in the project microgrant form is to demonstrate, past. So even if it's not doing a workshop like that, if you have professional practice that you can use as demonstration, so either through work or other volunteerism or anything like that, that can show that you've completed a similar project or have done something, have the skill set to be able to complete it.
And you said the deadline is in 2 days?
Correct. For the next upcoming cycle.
Does that require letters of recommendation as well?
No, that one does not.
Okay, thank you.
I had another question.
Yes.
I just thought of, so I've done murals for a few private residences in Long Beach. Is that something that counts, or should they be like, do they need to be public murals?
So I think that quote unquote counts as, work in Long Beach, but I think, the more that there's a benefit to the residents in Long Beach, the higher that will be scored. So, nobody's going to be excluded from applying, but the more kind of work that you've done in Long Beach, obviously you'll score higher on that section of the grant application. So think about that when you're filling out your application and putting that, highlighting that on your CV or in your statement, because that's going to be scored pretty high.
Okay, thank you.
I do see a question about artist residencies, and we have in the past supported artist residencies through the professional development microgrant, and we do pay for part of the fee. That's correct. Definitely not all of it, and not necessarily at the full 50%, depending on what the cost is. Any other questions? All right. Well, if you do think of something afterwards, feel free to email us at grants@artslb.org. We'll be here to answer any questions that you might have. And we're also here to support you in professional development leading up to the grant. So please just reach out to us if you have any questions or need support with the application.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much.
I would like to also add before everyone leaves, I did put artist registry editing instructions in the chat.
Thank you,
So if you want
Judy.
to scroll through real quick and download that before we leave. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.